So today's question is, have you ever felt like you weren't enough? We're in Exodus 4, and this is where Moses starts arguing with God. But God's not taking any excuses. Verses 1 through 17, Moses makes excuses, but God makes a way. So Moses says, what if they won't believe me or listen to me? And God says, all right, let's give them something to see. So first God says, throw down your staff. So Moses throws it down, and bam, it becomes a snake. And Moses jumps back, and I don't blame him. I'm going to jump back too if the snake's on the ground. And then God tells him to grab it by the tail and turn it back into a staff. What's the lesson? God can take ordinary things and make them mighty when you obey. Then God gives them another sign. He says, stick your hand in your cloak. And it comes out leprous, and it's white as snow. He says, stick it back in, bam, it's healed. And if that ain't enough, God says, if they still don't believe, take water from the Nile and pour it out, and it'll turn to blood. So God loads Moses up with these signs, but Moses still don't feel real confident. Moses says, Lord, I'm not very good with words. I get tongue-tied. God says, who makes a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak, hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? If God made you, he can use you, period. But Moses still begs, Lord, please, send anybody else. So God gets a little hot under the collar, you know what I'm talking about? Because disobedience ain't cute. But he still shows mercy. He says, all right, what about your brother, Aaron the Levite? I'll be with you both as you speak, and I will instruct both of you in what to do. So God doesn't change the mission, but sometimes he could give you a little help to get it done. In verses 18 through 23, Moses heads to Egypt. So Moses finally obeys. He heads back to Egypt with his wife, his sons, and his staff in his hand. He's ready for action. God tells him, when you arrive back in Egypt, go to Pharaoh and perform all the miracles that I've empowered you to do. But God also says, I will harden his heart, so he will refuse to let the people go. Sometimes obedience means stepping into a fight that won't be easy, but God's already prepared the victory. God also gives Moses a strong message to deliver. He says, Israel is my firstborn son. Let my son go so he can worship me. So in verses 24 through 26, we see a strange but serious moment. Now this part gets serious. On the way to Egypt, God confronts Moses because his son hasn't been circumcised like God commanded Abraham. So Zipporah, Moses' wife, quickly takes care of it, and God's anger is turned away. Listen, you can't lead God's people if you're not obeying God yourself. Verses 27 through 31, we see Moses where he meets Aaron and the elders. So finally, Moses meets up with Aaron, just like God said. They gather the elders of Israel together. Aaron speaks, Moses shows the signs, and the people believe. When they heard that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen their misery, they bowed down and they worshiped. Sometimes all you need to hear is that God sees you, and it'll make you fall down and worship. So what's Exodus 4 teaching us? First, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Second, excuses don't stop God's mission. Obedience does. Third, when you move forward in faith, God shows up in power. And fourth, if God sees your pain, he's already working on your deliverance. Listen, you might feel like Moses sometimes scared, sometimes shaky, sometimes full of reasons why you ain't the right one, but God ain't looking for perfection. He's looking for surrender. You bring the stick, God will bring the power. Keep reading your Bible, and don't be dumb.